Hello and welcome to the Powerful Project. Today we're sitting here with Cory. He has a PhD in women's health with studies specifically researching nutrition and iron metabolism. It's really great to have you on the podcast here today.
Thanks so much. I was listening to a few of the podcasts this morning, I was saying in the car, and the one before the silly season was awesome. Definitely vibed with a lot of that content. And then listened to the one with Nina and ADHD.
It's our most popular one so far.
I sent that link straight to several friends. This is so true. This is so true.
It is. I think that's how we kind of connected as well about the ADHD and task management things, which is really cool. And then we've actually met maybe 2020 when we did the research. So it's really cool to finally have you on the podcast and have you back in Perth and actually meet again after working together online for the last 6 months. And then we've been connected for a while before that. But yeah, awesome.
No, thanks so much for having me.
So we have a question. What does being powerful mean to you?
Oh, I wrote this down. It's in this mess of notes.
Train your memory.
It was tough. It was a tough question. I don't know. I think I overthought it straight away. But
Being an academic.
For me, the definition of power or powerful is the ability to think without assurances of yourself or your surroundings, which I was going to change after hearing Nina's response to the question, but I will stick with it. I think that your ability to always inquire and to not be fully sure of yourself or your surroundings allows you to embrace uncertainty.
I like it. No one has answered that before, so well done.
Thanks.
This is a different perspective shift.
Yeah.
I think it can be linked and not seem so negative if you put it in terms of things like, let's say, meditation, where you're focusing on your breath and the present moment. And if you have a thought, you need to detach from that thought. It's very similar to embracing uncertainty. You need to make sure that you're detaching from things like your thoughts, your beliefs, your ideas, not necessarily stepping away from them, but always being open to other possibilities.
That's great. And I think, isn't that what science is, about curiosity and finding out new things?
Yeah,
That's
definitely.
Very sciencey answer.
Yeah, I think it's great. Can you tell us a little bit about your history and what do you do? I'd love to hear also all the places that you're currently working at in the universities, because you were telling them me before. It was amazing.
Thanks. I will, if I get off track, please just bring me back to the talking point.
Don't worry, we've done that with Nina too.
yeah. I was so happy that I listened to that one because she kind of said everything I was going to say in terms of if I get off track.
We got you.
My history. So I went to or started university at UWA in 2013. I was really unsure as to what I wanted to do. So I started as a physics major and after 6 months dropped out straight away.
Actually, isn't a fun side story about the physics part of UWA? They have this big statue in the foyer. Is that right? Like a body?
Yeah.
Yeah, and the story behind it was another country sent it to them thinking it was the physical centre.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So they've just kept it there as like a piece, an art piece, but it was actually meant for, like, say, a gym area or a physical centre.
I think I know the one
it's
you're
really
talking
interesting.
about.
Yeah, it's in the front foyer. I learnt that when I went there as well, but just when we were doing a tour around, they were telling us that story and I thought it was fascinating. There you go, you started in the physics area.
Well, it's a good fact to now have if I ever walk past. So I started doing physics, realised that's not what I want to do. So I deferred, tried to figure out what I was passionate about, and at that time I was very passionate about exercise. I was also passionate about learning, but I didn't really have an effective way of doing it. It was always, for example, doing physics was you had to do things in a specific process, or you had to do tasks that aligned with a specific unit in a way that was, I wasn't wired to do things that way. So when I came back to university and started doing things that I was passionate about, exercise, sports science, that's where I really got a passion for research and trying to generate knowledge. And that was awesome because it meant I was able to create different kinds of research ideas, questions, and I could design them in ways that worked for me in terms of completing tasks, going about projects and whatnot, which only made me more passionate. So I finished my undergraduate degree in 2017, I think. It was a lot longer than what an undergrad degree should take.
Nothing wrong with that.
No.
That happens.
I did my honours dissertation in type 1 diabetes at the Telethon Kids Institute, and that was research investigating the effect of high altitude on blood glucose levels
Interesting.
in people with type 1 diabetes that were exercising. And that was a real fun project and got me into the research game. And then after graduating from the honours, I applied for a PhD scholarship, and the advice I was given at the time, and I'm so glad that I went along with the advice, was to choose the supervisor and not necessarily the project. So I went and found the most passionate person in the building, and that person was an iron metabolism professor, and he was linked up with the professor of surgery at the time, and he's a big advocate for women's health and does a lot of research in women's health. And then my PhD started in women's health and iron metabolism, so the merging of the two, and then both of their passions just kind of rubbed off onto me over that time. And now, still very passionate in the field. And so the second half of your question was, where am I at now? At the moment, I'm doing a postdoc so just continuing research, essentially after the PhD, at Louisiana State University. And I also have some research roles here in Perth at UWA and Curtin. And I just finished a research project at Monash University in Victoria.
All over the show.
It's been
so many things.
Awesome to be given this many opportunities, and it's been something that I definitely can't take all the credit for. My supervisory team throughout the PhD were just fantastic, and they open the doors so much they do open the doors so much for anyone that's passionate in a field that's very much underrepresented.
I think we've heard the word passion a lot in your history and how you found what you do at the moment. Do you try a lot of things to find your passion, or do you have any tips for someone that's also starting or a bit unsure how they find something that they're passionate about? Because I think long term, no matter what job you do, if you don't have the passion for it, it's becoming one of those tasks. But I think having long work days and demanding jobs and 3 different jobs in 3 different states, if you're passionate about it, it's going to make it a lot easier to follow through. Do you have any tips for that? Off topic from mine, but
I can just say what I did from a personal experience. I wouldn't say use it because it's long-winded and probably not effective as other things. But after I went to uni initially and then deferred, not really knowing how it was I would go about finding my passion, I printed off the course book for every university in WA and got a permanent marker and just started process of elimination.
Yeah, nice.
So things like zoology and...
Not for you?
Not for me. So it was
because I think when you finish high school, you get bombarded with 1,000 things that you're meant to do, or parents want you to do, or teachers want you to do, and it's really hard to actually find what you want to do and commit to, because you're technically really freaking young. How are you meant to know what you want to do for the rest of your life? And I think I hear it more and more with clients and people that they're really unsure, and they start uni, they start an apprenticeship, and they go and start a few things until they find the one that they actually love doing. And it used to be like, oh, it's taken me longer than it should. And that used to be a bad thing, when I really think it's probably a good thing because you found ways around it or found things that you wanted to do.
Yeah, no, that's definitely a good way to put it. I think, yes, a lot of times coming out of high school, you can be very pushed in a given direction, whether it is family or the school or friends. For me, it was somewhat of a mix of all three. The biggest probably being I didn't know what it was specifically that I wanted to do. And then all of my friends were going to UWA to do engineering or computer science. Mm-hmm. And neither of those really stuck out for me. So I thought I'll go to uni, do physics, and maybe be an astrophysicist. That was,
Not now.
No, it didn't happen.
That's amazing that it's come to where it is now. So what originally got you so interested in the women's health? So it was the mentors were one impact.
Yeah.
And then what else got you driven into women's health? And also like to, get into that conversation. You've noticed how underrepresented women's health is in the research.
Yeah. I think definitely the mentors and the supervisors. On top of that, it is the role of a researcher to identify gaps in whatever it is your field is in. And for me, coming from a nutrition background, you don't need to look too far into the literature to see that the majority of studies are done in males, usually Caucasian males, between the ages of 18 and 45. And I think that it is a really... It's tough for someone that is in the world of women's health or exercising women or female athletes, because a lot of the research isn't necessarily for them, and there needs to be research that's for them. I see too often people coming to clients that'll come and say, why isn't this program working for me? My boyfriend's passed it on and it's working for him, and he's paid all this money for it. Why isn't it working for me? And it's just such disappointing to see, because research needs to be done in that area on so many different topics.
It's the whole shrink and pink approach, right? It's that works for men, so it must work similar to females, when there's no research, because obviously doing research on females is a lot harder because there's more variables, which I think is why in the past people have just avoided it. Or I like to believe that's why they've avoided it.
Yes. And not only that, so I know that it's been talked about a couple of times on this podcast. I hope to give a little bit more insight.
Yeah.
The research not only, I think, insights you would either look at a research question pragmatically, which is only just becoming more and more prevalent, or you can look at the cause of something like the underlying mechanism, which is very rigorous science. Now, a lot of the research that's looking at the underlying mechanism, you want everything to be controlled for, or as much to be controlled for as possible. And that is where the preference to having male participants in a lot of studies comes from. Further to that is, if there is research in females, a lot of the research that's done in my field, exercise science, specifies some of the time, I'm not going to put a percentage on it, but it specifies that in the methods that females should be tested in the follicular phase, and the follicular phase only. And that's because the hormones are as close to males. So if research is done in women and is published, it's only in that phase. So there's, again, so much to be done on the impact that the menstrual cycle and menstrual health has on almost every topic of nutrition and exercise science.
That's crazy. I remember working with another PhD student at a company, I won't name anything, and he was doing his research, and we were looking at activation of the biceps during different exercises, and And I had this conversation with him, and I was like, you need to make sure, depending on when you test the girls, it might be different. Where then their menstrual cycle, and he's like, "Nah, that's all bullshit."
Oh,
And his phrase was, "Oh, there's like studies that have been done, and they've identified that it's more like perception than actual science." And I was like, I don't have a science degree, but I work in a gym, and I can tell you, maybe there's some perception with it when someone's like extra tired or they use the period as an excuse. But if I can observe this within a case study of a couple of females, and that's like a small case study that is like just by word of mouth, and they just say, this is how I feel, so it's not tested and regulated. But if that's what happens in the gym just with my clients, and that's a small percentage of females, and 80% of them do feel different throughout their menstrual cycle, surely you can't just tell me, science says this otherwise.
I think that comes back to my definition of power pretty well, is always have an open mind, never be sure of anything. So just because research over the last 100 years has said this in males, don't automatically shut the mind and say this is going to be equivalent to females. And if a male says that they have heard science say that the menstrual cycle has no impact or influence and is more perceptive, then I think they need to look at the literature first. And then
we have massive arguments.
We don't talk anymore.
But then also, as someone that would, as a male, not be able to experience it, then the mind should be open to any and all alternative explanations to whatever science he read, which may come from the website we looked at earlier.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting as well. And I'd like to probably tie that into your big study you've done with the iron and women, because I'd love to hear all about that and what you found throughout it. You were just showing me a table before as well of some different data that you took during the study that you're now looking at, which is interesting, kind of tying back into that. Like the quantitative data was one thing, the points, and then you were also collecting qualitative as well. Can you explain a little bit more about the difference of those and how that ties into your study?
Yeah, so my PhD was broken down into 3 themes. The first theme was synthesizing the literature, so going out, examining pretty much everything that has been published on iron deficiency in women's health. And we did a Cochrane review, which is a kind of meta-analysis or systematic review where it takes stock of all the research up to this point, and then we can identify gaps from there. And there were a lot. And it was actually really interesting to go through and identify all the different gaps and how, or hypothesize how they may have gotten there. So things like the underrepresentation of women in research, like we just discussed. But then thinking about why would iron deficiency be so normalised in society? Why would heavy menstrual bleeding be so normalised in society? Why don't people get diagnosed with iron deficiency? There's so many pieces to the puzzle. And I tried to put it all together in a poster that I presented just before I graduated. I think I still have it somewhere.
Is it the blue one?
No.
With like a pink running athlete on it?
It has a pink purple running athlete. But I was told to change it several times because I think I called out the World Health Organization one too many times. Yes. Sorry, the other research. So that was theme 1, synthesizing the literature, identifying the gaps. From there, I aimed to come up with a screening tool that we could use at a population-based level that would identify people that were high risk of iron deficiency or anemia. Because you go to a doctor and it's not always 100% that you could go in and say, I have these symptoms, and the doctor would then send you for iron studies blood test. On top of that, having an iron or a blood test for iron takes blood out of you. Paradoxically, you're taking iron away from the body, which is only lowering your iron. So I wanted to come up with a tool that could be used simply to measure someone's risk and then do it in a way that doesn't make them more at risk.
That's really ethical.
So we came up with this questionnaire, which had a lot of questions, which we then refined. We were looking at specific risk factors for iron deficiency. If you're a woman, then straight away. Now, this was women-only research, but further breaking it down into, okay, how old are you? And then looking at how old someone is relative to the daily recommended intake, you can see that the required iron intake of adolescents is significantly higher than elderly populations. Menstruating populations, it's also high. People that are pregnant, also high. So these are all risk factors that we used in the questionnaire. Things such as, are you a mother? Are you a blood donor? How often do you exercise? Because exercise is associated with iron loss. So we essentially brainstormed, did a whiteboard sesh of all the different ways that someone might lose iron as a given female in the age range of 18 to 45. And we came up with this extensive list of questions. We then used a finger prick blood sample to take a single drop of blood to measure hemoglobin. Hemoglobin's the stuff in your blood that carries oxygen, and it's where the majority of your iron is in the body. It was not the best indicator for iron deficiency. Have you guys had iron blood tests before? Yeah. So you probably see ferritin or serum iron. Ferritin is what iron is stored in. So ferra, Fe, iron, tin, storage tin. And that's a much better indicator of iron deficiency. However, there's no finger prick blood test that's accurate enough to use. So what we use is hemoglobin. Now, hemoglobin decreases when you have iron deficiency at a very late stage. So if you have iron deficiency, you start feeling average, you have symptoms. If you continue to lose iron, it gets to a point where your body can't make hemoglobin. It's called erythropoiesis disruption. That's when iron deficiency anemia becomes possible, or is the next step.
Is anemia after iron deficiency, or is it same?
After. So there's iron. We have 3 stages. The definitions of iron deficiency and anemia are a massive topic of debate in the research field. Every country, every medical association, every research team has different thresholds for the blood tests. And it's frustrating. I intend to write an article on that soon. Iron depletion is stage 1, and that's where your body starts just depleting in iron, not necessarily symptoms presenting, but stores are getting low. Stage 2 is iron deficiency, but it's without anemia. That can still have a large array of symptoms, ranging from fatigue, tiredness, brain fog. I feel like I don't need to tell you guys what were your...
Well, I'll get you to list symptoms later, just in case someone listening's like, maybe I do. Maybe I just feel tired all the time. And then you have more symptoms.
Yes.
It can add up.
So true. So that's stage 2. And then if you continue to not access treatment, or you continue to essentially go down the same path, and that's so common because not only is iron deficiency normalised, it's underdiagnosed and undertreated. The third stage is iron deficiency anemia, and that's where not only are your iron stores depleted, they're depleted to the point that you can't make red blood cells anymore. which as a result means your body can't carry around as much oxygen. And in the exercise science world, that's a decrease in your VO2 max. So your ability to exercise, endurance performance decreases, and that's, you know, the nth degree. We're talking people can stand up and have, you know, get really dizzy and pass out. So we can almost take exercise off the table there. It's more quality of life. And it's a big topic on quality of life.
Yeah, that's huge. So with the questions as well, you also asked more questions at the end?
Yes.
Yeah.
So we used that screening tool I think we measured 2,000 people in Perth.
Oh, wow.
So I hope people, if anyone's listening and I stabbed them over the last 3 years, thank you for participating. What we found was a significant correlation between heavy menstrual bleeding, iron deficiency, and iron deficiency anemia. What the research kind of currently says is that one leads to the other, that leads to the third. Our data kind of suggested that they're all interlinked and intertwined. And it was interesting to see the symptom presentation for people with all of the three. What we concluded was that any of them in isolation could significantly reduce someone's quality of life, or a combination of them could do the exact same. On top of that, we saw that people that exercise more were more likely to be iron deficient. People that donated blood were significantly more likely to be iron deficient and anemic. Some of the symptoms that people reported were more likely to predict iron deficiency and anemia than others. Some of the really specific ones to iron deficiency, like pica or pica.
What was that, craving diet or...
Craving non-nutritional substances. And it's been really interesting doing the travel around to the different institutions, because every country has their own different things.
Oh, like what?
Oh, like what
Examples.
is craved?
Here in Perth, it's very common for people to say that they've craved ice or paper or dirt. In South Africa, I met a professor who said it's clay or the smell of rubber or the smell of petrol.
Interesting.
And then in the States, it was similar. Oh, there were some really good ones. I've just gone completely blank.
It's a tough question.
But ever since then, it's been if it comes up in conversation and someone talks about their experience with iron deficiency and they've had pica or pica, I'm straight away like wanting to get data.
Which one?
Yeah, which one? It's really interesting, and we know almost nothing about it in terms of its underlying mechanism.
Yeah, like if we asked why does that occur,
Yeah,
not much literature behind it at all.
We almost have no idea.
It's just a symptom at the moment.
Just a symptom.
Yeah.
But
So fascinating.
how it presents. There's theories about people looking at dirt and dirt being earthy.
There's iron in that.
That's the extent. I did have a couple of glasses of wine with the professor from South Africa, and we went down a pretty interesting conversation about it potentially being connected to the nervous system. And this is all just complete speculation, so please don't quote me on this. But in states of iron deficiency or anemia, changes to the nervous system they are certainly plausible. And then if you add that to any other kind of aspects of life that might impact the nervous system, you might very quickly see parasympathetic shutdown, sympathetic activation, and that, as we know, has impacts on the brain that very quickly take away reason and rational thought.
And simplifying that, you'd be saying that maybe they'd be getting more in that fight or flight mode, the sympathetic state, and less in parasympathetic rest and digest. So the behaviours of the nervous system would start turning up as symptoms.
Yeah, potentially.
Potentially.
Again, this is all speculation. This was a chat with a professor over a glass of wine. Yeah.
Deep scientific chats that have speculation.
Well, I said at the time, just as good as the dirt has iron in it, so I want the dirt theory that people have published on.
I think it's fascinating. It's really interesting. And so what other interesting symptoms of iron deficiency turn up that people may not be so aware of? Like, because tiredness, fatigue, just in general, like low energy levels and inability to have performance in the gym seem to be top of the list. Yeah. And brain fog and lack of concentration. Yeah.
We had a list of, I think, 20.
Wow.
If you can give me a second, I'll try and find it.
Yeah, because those are the common ones.
Yeah. But they can also be related to many other problems. But then as you go down and down and down, maybe someone who hasn't actually gone into awareness whether they may be low in iron or not could start thinking, maybe I should go and talk a little bit more to my GP about this. Because it is sometimes common to be brushed aside if it's just something like, I feel tired.
Yeah. And
if they knew a few more and they're like, actually, I tick a few of those boxes.
And it very commonly overlaps with other things.
Yeah.
So, and this is somewhat of a tangent, but the fatigue and tiredness can also be things like anxiety is a symptom. Mm-hmm. And it's actually more common than you would think for people with iron deficiency to be prescribed SSRI and anti-anxiety medications over being investigated for iron deficiency.
Wow.
Interesting.
Which just has its own curveball of potential impacts on someone's quality of life. So I think it's more the interplay of the symptoms and which ones are more prevalent. But the thing with iron deficiency is that they are so insidious. They come about so slowly to the point where I feel fine, I feel fine, I feel fine, I feel fine. I've fallen over because I'm anemic.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, so it's almost like, was the frog in hot water?
Yeah.
People aren't really noticing that things are changing because it's so slow, it's so gradual. This is just their new normal until something very obvious happens, or like you mentioned, something bad happens, like falling over. Is that usually due to really low blood pressure, or just the fact that their body is not able to pump enough oxygen around when they get to that anemic point?
I think it's a mix of things as well, but very most likely because of the oxygen, or the inability of the oxygen.
Is it also true that the population is getting sicker? So even if you think, oh, maybe you listen to this podcast or do your research and you're like, oh, maybe I am iron deficient, I want to get my iron level tested. Then you go to your GP. If you're lucky and you have a good one, they will test your iron levels. And then that's what happened for me. I got back and he's like, oh, yeah, they're in the normal range. Because the normal ranges are so adjusted to our population being unhealthy, quote unquote, that actually my iron levels might be very low. But because the whole population has really shit iron levels, my iron levels are actually in quote unquote normal ranges, but really they're not.
Yes.
So then you get told, oh, you're actually not iron deficient or you're not low in iron. So then I go on with my life, still feel like crap. And I wonder what the heck's going on because I don't know what I'm looking at. The GP's like normal ranges because they have so much on their to-do list.
Yeah.
They don't further investigate.
Yeah. And that is such a, not to play it under, but I think that's such a common experience for a lot of women that are going through iron depletion and potentially iron deficiency. I've had one friend who came and showed me her blood test results, and she was so on the border that according to the Australian Medical Association, she was iron deficient. But according to the pathology that she got her blood test, she wasn't. At which point the doctors said, I don't know what this is. We're going to send you to a haematologist. And again, I think this comes back to my idea of what power is. I think if you don't look at something with a black and white line and say, maybe we should explore this just because we have working definitions, which, as you alluded to, are based on very little evidence. Which, yeah, I'm happy to explain a bit further.
Yeah, because I think from what I've heard from clients or friends and family, that sometimes if you then eventually do get the diagnosis and you go on an iron supplement, your body doesn't absorb the iron supplement for certain people, or certain people struggle with the iron supplement, so then they have to go to an iron infusion. But by the time they've figured all that out, they've been feeling average for months.
Yeah, yeah. And that's where I think having or realizing the information that you get. So I always tell clients that if you do go and get a blood test, you can ask the pathology to jot down your email and they'll send you the results.
Mm-hmm.
And I've published some content on a social media platform that is essentially a lecture series that goes through an actual blood test result and say, okay, this number represents iron deficiency or good iron stores because of X, Y, and Z, which has had some pretty good traction, which I think suggests that a lot of people are having similar issues where they go to the doctor with a bunch of symptoms, not knowing what it is,
Yeah.
and not being looked at in potentially the right way.
And like you've been explaining, there's the kind of 3 stages. So if someone's just in iron depletion, they may only be noticing a few. But if they were bordering on towards iron deficiency, that would be a crucial time to take action to not keep sliding down the hill into anemia. But that would be the time when, they'd be getting those results saying, it's here or there, give or take, and then end up not doing anything about it because obviously you're like, yeah, I'm okay, continue, and then it would slide until it's at that critical point. So, how would someone be able to, obviously you've got the lecture series that can help, so a bit of awareness on the numbers that people are actually looking at?
So it goes through specifically not only the numbers and how varied they may be across the world, more the relationship that those numbers would have. So in a more of a scientific way, if you were to take a client and measure their max deadlift, 1 RM, it doesn't really tell you anything until you reassess at a later point. So there's no point in comparing that standalone test to much else if you're looking at that individual specifically. You're going to look at it at a later time point and then compare from that. And similar to a training program, you would suggest or say, okay, iron status is stabilized. Is it at the level we want? Yes or no? Is it decreasing? And if it's decreasing, then we go back and look at reasons why. It's very rarely done. And then you would look at strategies to improve iron status. And then I think that's where a lot of misconception and myths can be seen in different kind of iron treatments.
So what are recommended iron treatments that are available?
I always love going back to the start for a bit of history, if that's okay.
Please do.
So iron deficiency anemia was originally called chlorosis. And it was misogynistically linked to hysteria in women a long time ago.
Just like us being on our periods, right?
It was called the green sickness. So really end stage iron deficiency anemia, you would have a green colour about you.
God, how bad would it have got to go that colour?
Yeah, very bad. Yeah, very bad. Not
and moody and hysteric.
You can tell if someone eats way too many carrots. Like you ever?
That happened to me.
Yeah.
I ate way too many sweet potatoes and pumpkin for a period of my life, and my hands went bright yellow.
Yeah.
Why is it vitamin A that's not getting processed? Why does that happen, or is it just colour?
I'm not sure.
Not sure.
But
I've heard that if you
I
eat
stopped it
carrots,
and I don't have yellow.
you keep your tan more.
Maybe because you stay yellow.
Well,
Side tangent it back.
I think this is similar, but it's green.
You go green.
It probably has so many different underlying mechanisms that are different. So
Interesting.
I imagine that there's a physiology.
Do people that bruise easy are usually low on iron?
that's another symptom. There's so many physiological ones that I was more so looking towards what the person experiences, but there are things like brittle nails, hair loss is a massive one. The skin, as I said.
You're bruising easily and low recovery as well.
Yeah, and that's from the qualitative work we've done where people have said it's after an exercise bout, it's just recovery time is much longer, which if you were to put it in the context of an athlete doing a program in the build up to an event, that kind of periodization plan just wouldn't allow for things like poor recovery time. But chlorosis was originally treated with iron filings in red wine. Yeah.
Holy crap.
Yeah. It was, I can't imagine what that was like, but that's where the research started. It then went to the first oral iron supplement, which was a tablet, and that had just over 1 gram of ferrous sulfate, which is. Have you guys taken iron tablets before? No. It's very common for there to be gastrointestinal upset
I've
as
had
a side
that reported
effect
from clients a lot.
This was essentially that, but times 10 was the original oral supplement. And that's obviously been researched and has become much more efficacious and less side effects. However, again, not perfect. But there's oral iron supplements, and then the intravenous iron infusion is the other commonly known intervention. And again, research has brought that a really long way over the last 100 years. It's much more efficacious, and that's because it skips. Our body is horrible at absorbing iron. We absorb, of the 2 types of iron that we consume, we can only absorb up to, I think it's 20% for the good iron, the heme iron, and then it can be as low as 5% for non-heme iron. And
sorry, what sources of food are found of each iron type?
heme iron is animal products, and that's basically the hemoglobin inside animal products. And then non-heme iron is plant-based products. And that's why we see a significantly higher proportion of iron deficiency, higher prevalence of iron deficiency in people that are vegetarian or vegan or meat-restricting diets.
Because they're primarily only getting the non-heme iron, and it's got that low percentage absorption rate.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then there's other things that impact iron absorption, right? Like coffee and vitamin C.
Yeah. So some of the enhancers or things that help iron absorption are vitamin C is the main one, and you'll probably see a lot of supplements at the chemist be mixed or bound with vitamin C, so iron plus vitamin C. So I think the most common iron supplement is Ferrograd C. It's Ferrograd iron and then C for vitamin C.
So I could just have a steak and an orange juice.
It's so much more to the puzzle, but people do say that. And some of the inhibitors are coffee and tea, and that's because there's a specific antioxidant inside them that inhibits iron absorption. A lot of people, there's a misconception around it being caffeine that is the inhibitor of iron absorption, when it is, the research suggests that it's the antioxidant.
Oh, that's interesting.
So is it black tea and green tea?
I think green tea is worse.
Interesting.
Don't quote me on that, though.
That's okay.
This is theoretically higher in antioxidants. Theoretically. Yeah, that's so interesting. So it's sources or ways that people have to increase iron. Generally, from the past, it started off as iron filings in red wine.
Yeah.
Was the red wine just because it's red? Like, what was the point of the red wine?
It's a good question.
Don't know.
Yeah, I never really dived further into that. I just thought
It's just
such
that's
an
perfect. Move
interesting
on from that.
thing. That's in every presentation I ever give.
Yeah, it's a
just
good one to remember.
Yeah,
just a
we've
quick-
come a long
The
way.
red wine is probably just to calm them down.
Yeah.
And then, that went into the tablets that now are technically more absorbable and less GI upsets. But some people, and in your study, when you asked what type how they felt about different supplements, is that what you asked them?
Yeah.
Like how they took the iron and how they felt about it?
Significant GI upset is still very common.
With supplementation with the tablet.
Yeah.
That's what I've heard a lot from friends and fam.
Yeah.
And infusions, do they tend to have as many side
No,
effects?
because oral supplements are effective.
But it's just
They're modest effectiveness. They're cheap and they're very accessible. Intravenous iron is very effective because 100% is absorbed by the body. And that's because we skip the gut. We go straight into circulation. The body's horrible at absorbing iron, so any ability to skip or bypass that process just makes things a lot easier. However, there are specific side effects that are more serious and are less likely, but still need to be acknowledged. Things like anaphylaxis and hypersensitivity to specific drugs. So there's a couple that are currently on the market, and people might be hypersensitive to any given one for specific reason. The last one that is probably more commonly known is the staining around the mark of the injection. People can get staining of the iron if it misses the vein, and it just is essentially a tattoo. It becomes a tattoo. For
I had no
life.
idea.
underneath the skin.
Yeah, you can. I'll see if I can find a photo.
It's fascinating. Yeah, it's all the stuff I had no idea about.
It's
That's crazy.
So someone said that she works up
So
on
do
the
you have like
mines
a
with...
black dot?
Yeah, I guess so. Or red or black.
it can spread out. It can be very bad. This is a really, really bad one.
Oh wow, like that whole...
Yeah.
Oh, shoot.
Show that up to the camera.
We can put it in. I
As
can
an
overlay it
overlay.
after. I
can
overlay it
overlay.
after. Just
At
send
that
me a
point.
screenshot.
So interesting. That girl's got a tattoo over it to try and deal with
Yeah,
it.
but that's basically, or it is permanent,
Yeah.
and you would.
Crazy.
I suppose iron does stain. Yeah, I have a client that goes up to the mines and she says the iron ore just stains everything, like anything and everything that it touches.
Yeah.
So like trying to get clean when you come back is like scrubbing everything.
Yeah. Imagine it inside and having a infusion miss circulation. But a lot of you would definitely need to read the terms and conditions before you go into whatever clinic it is you use, because I imagine that you would sign
Your life
some
away,
kind of document beforehand.
Yeah. And then with nutrition, trying to get heme iron because it has a higher percentage absorption rate generally
Yeah,
than, and also non-heme iron.
yeah.
But yeah, so are there any nutritional recommendations for daily intake for women, or is that very variable depending on every different woman's needs?
I think it's very variable depending on not only needs but preferences. So I've seen people that have been iron deficient and been given the medical advice to start eating meat despite them being vegan,
Oh no.
which I really can't understand. So I think from that perspective it needs to be individualised. I think that you can employ strategies about the intake of iron at what times of the day, and there is some really interesting research being done at UWA at the moment and the Institute of Sport looking at how you might go about taking iron around the menstrual cycle at different times. Very, very preliminary research at the moment, but you can also do iron intake around exercise. You know how you would carb load or glycogen restore. After you exercise, you have systemic inflammation build up, and what that does is it increases your levels of hepcidin. Hepcidin is a hormone that regulates iron absorption. The higher your hepcidin, the lower your iron absorption. capacity. So after exercise, you have high inflammation, which means high hepcidin, which means low iron absorption, which is where a lot of recommendations suggest that, or give advice that say people should take iron supplements well before training, preferably in the morning or at night time. And then if you do have really, really bad GI upset, then consider taking it on every second day. And research suggests that it doesn't significantly reduce the amount of iron that you're getting in your diet if you take it every second day. I would say you need to find the right. I would not, if I was taking a tablet daily and then was told to take it every second day, I would straight away not remember what day was what.
Oh, yeah, true, yeah.
Wake up every morning and be like, is it today?
Well, it's like, is my gut upset today? If not, then it's the day. So that's really interesting. Is that also one of the reasons why athletic female populations tend to have the iron depletion, like what you mentioned about the hormone?
It's one of many causes so exercise can reduce iron stores in many different ways. You can have increased loss of iron. You can lose iron through sweating. You can lose iron through blood loss, as we know. But exercise-associated blood loss, after a bout of exercise, you have microbleeding after a bout of exercise, which is technically a loss of iron. You also have, if you're an endurance runner, what's called hemolysis, which is the destruction of red blood cells from foot strike. So if you're a runner and you're an endurance runner and you just keep planting feet on the ground, you can destroy enough blood cells on such a small level over time that it can play some kind of a role in reducing iron levels.
Wow.
Interesting. Maybe that's why I'm more tired now. Or my running.
Now that you're
running more. Joking.
That plus the hepcidin hormone with inflammation is why exercising individuals, male or female, are more prone to iron deficiency. When you take the exercise, female physiology, current research, not looking into it as it should, then it's somewhat understandable, not acceptable, but understandable as to why the prevalence rates are so high and why the diagnosis and treatment rates are so low. And that's where I think the normalisation comes from.
Yeah, it's almost just an accepted fact that you're like, oh, you're a bit tired and you have low iron. Oh, well.
I've had participants come to the testing or come through testing and, they've said things like, I've been iron deficient my whole life. It's just a thing. It's just like a health condition that I would otherwise have that's not necessarily physiological. But it's just, something that is normalised to that point where it's frustrating, upsetting to see, knowing that research can be done or there are ways that can be corrected.
There's possibilities.
Yeah, and possibilities that I think should be easily accessible and normalised. I think that, it's just such a under-researched and for such a high prevalence of iron deficiency in the population, in the female population. We've had recent studies come out in exercising females that are menstruating, so in reproductive years, prevalence rates of up to 70%.
What?
Of athletic populations. Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy.
Iron deficient.
That's so high.
This specific sample came from a group of dancers at WAPA. And another risk factor added there is the weight restriction required for their sport.
Yeah.
And that's just a whole nother dimension added to it. So if you have exercise as a risk factor, and then you also have a specific sport that requires a specific weight, or there's lots of sports that you can calorie restrict for periods of time. Similarly, that's another risk factor for iron deficiency.
Yeah. And does that tie into like is it the syndrome, like it was called the female athletic triad that had like those factors? It had the low iron, it had active like exercising, and was it bone health?
Bone mineral density,
And then it's been expanded to either red S. Or red S.
So red S is the relative energy deficiency in sport.
Yeah.
And it's 10 factors with iron deficiency making up part of one of the 10 segments. And it's essentially the energy deficit that someone would have based on all of these things together. And that's not just iron deficiency risk factors, but it's also nutritional intake, body composition, hereditary. There's so many factors. And it's something that's again really prevalent in female athletes, and it's it would be something I imagine very difficult to manage in an elite sport.
I think that's
setting.
Also really good for people to know, not just if they've been in sports their whole life and they may actually be affected by this and iron deficiency, but also I guess women getting into the gym and starting from maybe a point that's a bit lower than normal and then maybe seeing a change in their energy levels as time goes on, as they might be using more iron on a daily basis. It'd be interesting for someone to know about that, as to why that may happen. And it's interesting you explaining why exercising populations, especially women, that could actually be a higher percentage. Fascinating. So I never knew that.
I am very keen. I'm potentially collaborating with a group over East who are very, very keen on advancing women's health, specifically in haematology, and iron deficiency or iron makes up part of that. And I came to them with the idea that I want, now that the Albanese government has announced a lot of money into women's health, that I want in GP practices for it to be, or to propose for it to be, just something that's inclusive in a yearly or bi-yearly checkup, depending on if you're, for example, if you answer a questionnaire that says, I'm female, between 18 and 45, I exercise and I have heavy periods, or I menstruate regularly, at which point I lose iron each month. If you tick those boxes as simply as you fill out a form, I think straight away you should be given access, at least given access to have it measured and to be told what it means and where you currently sit in terms of
options are.
Because prevalence rates are that high. If you say no, we shouldn't do it because that'd be so many people we're getting tested. It's like 70% of some populations are iron deficient, so we would need to test almost everyone.
But then what is the ricocheting effect on the health system if women continue to be iron deficient and get to anemia in the long run?
There's actually really interesting research on the economic burden of iron deficiency, anemia, and heavy menstrual bleeding. It's in the billions, I think.
Wow.
I should know that because it's in one of my conclusions for a published paper. When you just completely forget a number. As soon as we finish the podcast, I'll be able to tell you exactly what it is. It is a significant burden. Not only is it a significant burden, some of the original studies came about because they were looking at it was the performance of, I think it was tea pickers in Sri Lanka. The majority of the tea pickers were anemic, had the green sickness. So they looked at and they would measure not the health of the person, but what is our production output? And it was X. Okay, let's change the diet that we're feeding the workers. Let's add some iron in it because people have been putting filings in red wine, so let's give it a go. We now see an increase in production. And there are actually studies that are almost identical to that.
But it makes sense, like if you have brain fog, you're going to be more unproductive, and if you're tired all the time, you concentrate less.
Yeah. That was my next point. It's like, okay, the ongoing effects when they're very sick and how that needs to be helped by the medical system. But yeah, the general working, functioning and daily life of being able to contribute to your society, feeling good about it. Yeah, if there's 70% of some athletic populations who are not feeling their best and might have to take days off that wouldn't necessarily need to be there if they had appropriate levels of iron, like that seems like a no-brainer to me. And more happiness, health and I guess vitality for your day has a very positive effect on every area, including productivity for workplaces if that's what they really care about.
I think starting my PhD was going to be very, very exercise focused. And then upon realising or seeing that if someone is at this stage, then it's not just exercise performance we should be measuring. It's quality of life, time taken off work. And that's what we took a sample similar to the one in Perth in London, 300, not 2,000. But on that questionnaire, we asked people how many days they took off work throughout the year based on if they had heavy menstrual bleeding, iron deficiency or anemia. And it was, I think the median, again, the number's just gone straight out of my head, but it was a lot of time off work. And if you run the numbers on that, again, let's focus on the health of the individual. But if you want the work to be published, let's run some dollars and then tell people how much money they're losing.
You want to get it to the big man at the top that wants the money. Like, well, here's the number. Here's what you need to do.
Exactly. So it's not only, it doesn't have effects at the individual level. It has effects at the population level, the individual level. You look further, it has impacts at the cellular level. And then if you want to go even further, it can have impacts at the mitochondrial level. And it all is intertwined and can be significantly detrimental to quality of life.
Well, I think you found a very powerful fight to fight. So
thanks.
The women of the world, thank you. If you get into this film, get into this world and start getting into the depth that you are, I think that can help so many women have a more qualitative, experience of their life. And just get out there and improve their iron levels.
Yeah, definitely.
Sounds so simple, yet there's so much involved in it.
I think thinking about it in terms of holistic her, I find it so not ironic but funny that when you think about holistic health, which is kind of what we're very much trying to portray, and then on the flip side you think about something so specific as a micronutrient in the diet, it kind of puts it into perspective as to how much information there is, how easily it is that health can be impacted on a variety of different factors, which is why I think holistic health is important. But I imagine that there's niche topics for every different dimension of health that I'm unaware of.
Like the stress management is a massive one because everyone's stressed and it has huge impact on your general health as well. Yeah.
I imagine that there's a similar podcast, but a different group of people talking about something that's very underrepresented or underdiagnosed.
But I think that's why it's important. And hopefully some of them are big rocks that you can look at and think this is going to make a big impact to focus on first and have better strategies around. And if there's enough people that are working towards that, then it can move down the list to see what's the next thing we can work on the next thing. And hopefully, whoever knows how many years from now, if this continues, we do have a more holistic view of women's health and a more beautiful idea, rather than just being like, you're too confusing, goodbye.
There are some goals that the World Health Organization made for 2030 or 2026 and then 2030 for the prevalence rates in the world. And there's no hope that we're going to hit the targets, but it's
something to work towards.
I think it's hopefully it comes in line with the big raise in women's health funding research as well, which I hope is just another stepping stone for increasing awareness to the issue.
Hugely.
At least people are speaking about it more, which I think is the first, like, it's a trending topic.
Yeah, I see it all over LinkedIn now. It's awesome.
So it's great.
Yeah.
The more conversations we can have and the more people become aware, hopefully then governments realise that funding these things is really important.
Yeah.
It's exciting. Do we want to do a little bit of a summary of what we've talked about today? And we have a couple of rapid fire questions actually from, that we can go through. You're like, oh no.
Happy to.
Shit, well maybe we'll go through our rapid fire questions. So, has there been a big link to the iron deficiency and its impact on menstrual health? Or you already mentioned they're kind of a cyclic, that's a pun actually, cyclic connection.
Can you repeat that? Sorry.
So, someone being iron deficient, does that impact their menstrual cycle, like its regularity and the heaviness of bleeding? Or the heaviness of bleeding impact iron more so? Or do you notice it's a cycle?
It can be two-way
Yeah.
influential.
Yeah.
Your menstrual cycle obviously involves blood loss, and the blood loss involves iron loss because iron is in the blood.
Mm-hmm.
And as a result, you become more susceptible to iron deficiency if you bleed more or if you are someone that doesn't absorb, so iron deficiency is iron absorption versus iron loss. So if you're losing iron more than you're absorbing it, then you're just going to continually get to a point until you are anemic. It would be nice if we could catch you at iron depletion and then turn you around, but we don't, or it's very much underdiagnosed, undertreated, it's normalised. So that's the one way. The other way is if you are iron deficient or you get to that point where you're very anemic, then the body can respond in a way where individuals can become amenophoric, which is the absence of menstruation. And you see that sometimes as well in elite populations. A lot of people say that exercising individuals or exercising females usually have amenorrhea, but it's the elite athletes that usually experience it. We see the same prevalence rates of heavy menstrual bleeding, which is another big indicator of iron deficiency. We see the same prevalence rates in exercising females, recreationally active females.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's a two-way street.
Yeah, two-way street.
How often should you test your iron levels?
I think it depends who you are. There's a lot of research out there that has a kind of algorithm structure that takes you down a list saying, okay, have you been iron deficient before? If so, all right, let's test you twice a year just to see the trend. If you're anemic, then it might be every 3 months. If you're in this population, if you're an adolescent, if you're pregnant, we just published a consensus statement on iron deficiency in pregnancy, advocating for the assessment of iron status at different stages of pregnancy, because again, it's not something that's medically adhered to. Like it's not a rule or a standard of care. So I think it depends very much. But I would say if you're someone that's interested in knowing your iron levels, if you're someone that's interested in exercise and your exercise performance, then similar to your VO2 max, similar to your, maybe not as similar, but if you want data indicating how well you're doing, then I think, measures like that are just as important, or can be just as important.
Basically, if you have an Oura ring and you're tracking all your other stuff, go track your iron as well.
Track your iron, definitely.
And like you mentioned, it would be great if eventually it was part of just that yearly checkup in the women's health world. That would be great, and catch so many more problems so much earlier.
It would be. The Iron Studies blood test is much more expensive because it isn't something that's covered in a full blood count. Hemoglobin is. So it's less commonly used more commonly used when someone's seen as iron deficient or giving off really strong indicators of iron deficiency. And that's where I was hoping to write a proposal to get the screening tool, revise the screening tool. I'd like to make it a little bit better. And then potentially get that out into anywhere, pharmacies, sporting clubs, GPs.
That'd be incredible. Yeah.
Good mission.
Yeah, it's a good mission. And what would you consider in your world the numbers for each stage? Or are you going to just say that it varies around the world?
I think way too much time has been invested in determining what the perfect numbers are, and more time needs to be invested. The number of publications in the last 5 years that are not actual investigative research, but review articles that say it's time we change the threshold values. It's almost a rite of passage for people in the iron deficiency research. The first paper that I ever published it did say something along those lines, but it also called out the reason why it needed to change. A lot of people publish saying, okay, these numbers need to change from X to Y. And again, I think this comes back to my idea of power. A number, depending on who you are, may change. The ideal diet, the ideal sleep schedule, the ideal anything is not going to be the exact same for anyone. At which point, trying to come up with a perfect line in the sand is not effective, I think. So I think resources need to be better used. I also think if the numbers do change, I think they need to change completely. At the moment, like you said earlier, the numbers are based on research from the 60s and 70s, where the World Health Organization went out and took a sample from the population, a healthy sample, and they got a normal distribution of what iron status looks like. And they said, okay, if you fall outside 2 standard deviations, then you're not normal. So you're iron deficient or you have iron overload. And they forgot to note that 30 to 70% of the female population was iron deficient at the time. So basic statistics is that is very skewed. And those are the numbers that are still used today. And they're also the numbers that are argued about changing today.
You can ask what numbers are, what is the actual measurement that they're arguing over?
They're arguing over what's mainly serum ferritin for iron deficiency, and then ferritin and hemoglobin for iron deficiency anemia. The numbers for the Australian Medical Association, they define iron deficiency as a serum ferritin of less than 30 micrograms per litre. And they then define iron deficiency anemia as females having a hemoglobin below 12. And then iron deficiency, I think ferritin changes. I know that the World Health Organization definitions are very different. Their definition of iron deficiency is a ferritin less than 15. So literally half of that.
Wow.
And those numbers can range from 15. I think there's a country that has 10. I think it's Canada. I don't know why, but I think it is. And it can go all the way up to, I think, 50.
Yeah.
It's such a range. Hemoglobin's more specific, but again, it kind of runs this principle.
Yeah, but that is what they're actually measuring and they're arguing over.
The normative data, which is fundamentally flawed at its original measurement. There's really recent research that's looking at physiological based values. So at what point does your body call for more iron? And there's different measures that aren't necessarily hemoglobin and serum ferritin. And they're related to the hormone hepcidin. And they're very specific cell receptors that call for, when the cell calls for iron, there's an increase in this receptor. And essentially when the receptor levels increase, it means that the cell wants more iron coming into it. And that's a really good theory for when the body is looking physiologically for more iron, not I fall outside a normal range of other people, but my body specifically is looking for more iron.
And, theoretically, if there were more receptors needing iron, then they would be more further down that spectrum. Would that theoretically be the case?
Yeah, so when the receptor levels increase, the body wants more iron. Yeah. If it can get more iron from what you're giving it, then great. If not, then your iron levels are going to decrease. Yeah. And then the symptoms will present.
Yeah, and start increasing.
As they decrease, yeah.
It's very interesting.
So the 3 core concerns were inadequate knowledge. There's currently poor gender equitable healthcare, which is another significant thing that should be noted. So people, if you're a male and you have a hemoglobin of 125 and a ferritin of 15, you'll be treated for iron deficiency anemia in a hospital setting before surgery, as an example. If you come in as a female with the exact same levels, you'll be treated as healthy.
Oh.
And that's in Australia.
Wow.
And
that's wild.
Yeah. And then the interplay of physiological factors in women, and then looking at the increased susceptibility, lack of awareness, historical gender bias, current guidelines, low quality of evidence, lack of high quality research, inconsistent numbers in diagnosing, gap in treatment strategies, no routine screening, creates the high prevalence. It's just such a puzzle. But sorry, I was looking for the symptoms.
So with the men getting treated in hospital, is that due to the curve obviously being different and the women were iron deficient already in the median? So then that level is different to the men?
For hemoglobin, there is research to suggest that the creation of erythropoiesis, or making red blood cells, is influenced by testosterone levels, at which point it does make sense physiologically that there would be a general difference in the average of hemoglobin between men and women, all other factors held constant. But using that as the guideline, and that's what the reference ranges are, that the threshold for anemia in males is 13 and females it's 12. But again, I think it's just a line in the sand that when you present to hospital with certain symptoms and certain blood test values, I think, again, the specific black and white line needs to be blurred and research needs to readjust.
Yeah, fair.
Yeah, definitely. And then bringing that back to someone's been given a training program that they're expected to follow and adhere to, that's not necessarily designed, individualized for them, and their specific requirements can have, firstly, physiological impacts, and then it can be so detrimental to things like exercise engagement, enjoyment. I've had clients, that have been down those situations and have had such a negative experience with it that it's put them off, wanting to go to the gym, wanting to exercise, because they know that their body is just not on their team, essentially, in terms of wanting to do the exercise and the performance, when in fact it should be the coach, the medical practitioners, and standard healthcare that should be on their team.
Yeah. I think, like I mentioned before, you're fighting a good fight. I think it's a great area to really put resources into to help so many women. Especially today's discussion has made me realise how high the percentage is in some populations of low iron, which is incredible.
Yeah,
and how much of an effect having adequate levels could improve quality of life and how they feel physically, mentally and emotionally. So you're on the right track.
I want to
Thanks.
get my iron level tested again.
And I hope
been a while.
this can be an avenue for participants
Yeah.
for any research that might come up in the future.
Yeah.
Willing study participants.
Awesome.
Cory's your guy. Learn more about iron.
We've got 10 more years.
We could do this. If anybody wants to contact you, how can they get in contact with you when it comes to research or also just general inquiries?
I'm happy to share my email.
Yeah, sure.
I'm also on LinkedIn and X. X is academics Twitter. LinkedIn. Academics don't have LinkedIn.
Really?
Oh.
No, they do everything through Twitter.
Interesting.
That's really interesting.
I know. I found it bizarre.
But you'd think they'd be on LinkedIn.
No, they're all on Twitter.
X.
X,
Fascinating.
whatever Elon wants to call it.
Cool. Right. We'll pop your email in the show notes. So if any listeners are wanting to get in touch regarding iron or more questions or see what is coming up with research study and opportunities, then that would be a really great way to get in contact with you.
Yeah, definitely. And always happy to discuss potential research ideas with people that are on the ground experiencing this stuff. I think a lot of the time research has people in the lab thinking what a great idea might be, but when in fact the best questions are probably coming from the people that are experiencing these things.
100%.
So if anyone wants to reach out and discuss things further, I'm always happy to have a chat.
Awesome.
Perfect. Thanks so much for listening. Subscribe to hear more and to stay updated when we release a new episode, but we would also love you to write a review if this episode has resonated with you. Remember that nothing changes if nothing changes. Reflect on what you've learnt from this episode, and we would love it if you messaged us your key takeaway. Until next time, keep showing up for yourself, take action for your health, and remember that you are powerful.